Okay. So we will open the planning board meeting for October 19th. This is being conducted in a hybrid manner pursuant to the general laws. We are recording it and we'll post it online. However, anybody else is free to record. You just need to let us know. Is anybody recording? Okay. 7 o'clock town planners reports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Okay. I have some good news to share with the board through
We're fired.
circumstances.
We're gonna race, we're gonna
No
race.
such luck. Stick around.
We are.
Through circumstances that I don't think anybody could have predicted, Megan Lakecap has returned to work as a planning board secretary. So I think it's a tremendous relief. She would be here today. She was a trooper and came in to start things yesterday and was understandably excused from work today.
That's great.
She's not going to be a virtual employee. She's going to be in person. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So I'm sorry,
Very
yes.
That's wonderful.
Interesting.
Perhaps most, if you will, but
Okay.
it's good to have you here. Had a nice employee appreciation lunch here over Town Hall last week. A real treat for your municipal employees.
This invitation.
Last week also I had a opportunity to attend the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission meeting as the planning board alternate since Marcus was unavailable. On to specific items. Following the last planning board meeting, Chairman Doherty and I met with Diane Gale. She had produced a document on behalf of the Save Southwick group that reviewed and took another look at bylaw revisions, mostly as related to major developments. I can do a quick run out. Major development review process, special permit, major development rules and regulations to develop a comprehensive impact statement. Special permit, major development review, size cap, special permit use of independent consultants, abandoned building surety bonds, and let's see, planning board conduct of hearings. And part of that discussion there brought out the notion of a potential, or I should say, the discussion of having a moratorium for certain types of development. And you got some attachments in your folders that you can discuss in greater detail. If anybody wants to take a look at that draft information, I'm happy to distribute a copy, although I may have it already by email. Largely, that discussion was looking at where we have overlap or conflict with some of the existing regulations. Some of our concerns coming from a little bit different perspective, but really looking carefully at some well thought out research and language that was put together. Mr. Chair, you want a potential moratorium idea right now? You want to put that on to the end of this little brief list? Your choice.
Why don't you get through this?
Okay.
And then we can do it because sheet pasture is going to be continued.
That's
So
right.
We have some time.
We do. Okay. We have seen continued interest bouncing through my number 10 2nd Street house that is quickly coming up for auction out there. Most of it has to do with how can this be redeveloped? What can they do for water services since there's nothing out there on 2nd Street?
Excuse, Second Street's not a town road, is that correct?
That I think is correct. That's one of the, we'll call them, oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna use the right term for it, but the bottom line is substandard dimensionally layout wise.
It's a road we plow for safety concerns.
That's right, as
Don't
many
make,
are
don't really
ways.
maintain, okay.
That's right. Let's see. Last Monday, I met with Ken Eggleston and Rob Levesque related to the discussion for 141 Congamon Road. You may recall that as we wound up the discussion at the last meeting. Ken had his mind wrapped around certain scenarios where he could be pursued. Reduction in required parking, reallocation of 9 by 16 instead of 10 by 20 parking spaces, and all that related to potential dock slips, not only for leasing, which is I think is something we're familiar with on the board, but also for how the trains use during those peak summer months might theoretically offset parking requirements for street vehicles. Following that discussion and after the meeting, I reached out to some municipalities for some insight, including, if you will, South Hadley. There's a the easiest probably one to think of for a restaurant and marina is the former Brunel's, now I think Dockside, but is the name of the restaurant. Fundamentally, it's a much larger site. Fundamentally, I think lake traffic, it's more, it's a loop. You don't get point to point travel as much as you think you do on the closed bodies of the Conemaugh Lakes. In a nutshell, they didn't indicate that. I talked to the town planner, and they didn't indicate having issues over time at that facility. Reached out over to Pittsfield because I know on Lakes of Pittsfield they've got a couple of restaurants and marina right there.
Another?
I'm sorry.
I was looking at another lake.
Oh, you'll have to pardon me for not picking up. I believe that's correct. That's a couple we are playing phone tag at the moment, but I think there might be something we can get a little more data on. So after placing 2 calls and doing some research and not coming up with anything material about that, I did reach out to a listserv for Massachusetts planners, and the absence of a material response from that group tells me that it's a fairly unique either idea or circumstance. Although some municipalities were interested to hear what our findings were going to be.
Let us know what you figure.
Yeah, it was interesting. So nonetheless, that discussion kind of rolls on. It's incumbent upon the applicant to provide the board by our bylaws with these industry accepted practices, but we're trying to do our due diligence as well and try to understand that idea as well. People Square has submitted an as-built plan, I should say, through our Lebec associates. So Mr. Lebec, Randy Brown, and I were both part of a conference call to start walking through that, identify some of the remaining punch items, and some questions that arose from that plan. But with any hope that will be progressing towards a point where the town will accept, if you will, that as well, particularly for utility purposes out there. Let's see, Mr. Robert Hinckley runs a farming operation out of Westfield, formerly partnered up with Tom Arnold. He reached out with the idea of splitting off a portion of the Arnold farm property on College Highway for farm labor housing. And to be fair, I haven't run across that particular circumstance in the past. Some cursory discussions with the building inspector leads me to believe that it may be, I'm going to say, classified in a similar fashion as to some of those the group homes, the group homes for rehabilitation, in as much as that there may not be any restrictions, or there may be fewer restrictions under zoning for the actual location. My immediate concern was if we divorce, if you will, that housing component from the farm that is contiguous with, would that pose a problem? So we're doing a little more research into that to try to find a definitive answer and get that back to Mr. Hinckley.
There was a situation a couple years ago, where Tom McLaughlin wanted to do some housing.
He is looking at it over in North Long Yard.
Right, North Line here, he bought the, but I think he was looking more trailers, I think, housing trailers like modular type, so just keep that in mind. Just
I appreciate the heads up on that. The facility is looking at right now does have a little hard-sided building. Mr. Scott, the building inspector, is familiar with it through his regular inspection of the premises. So we're just going to find the details about how that fits into frankly, Mass General law. That's what it comes down to. Over at the end of Hudson Drive, I met with Connie Lu, the civil engineer that's putting together design drawings for the proposed solar array. Off the east side of the end, it involves some realignment of the Silcon access roadway. I provided her and her team with the feedback from town council about how they see this proceeding. In this particular case, it would be an update to the existing reuse plan to reflect that solar component. The question had come up early on whether or not it was appropriate to keep that permit alive with that acreage or not. Town council essentially gave it that nod to update the reuse plan, and they'll come in with their own separate application by the project proponent for the solar array. I have a question for the board. This is right after we ask it about short-term rentals. This is live and on the ground because the call came in just a few short hours ago, and I haven't had a chance to research it. But I understand there may have been some dialogue in the town to date. So I'll take any feedback or thoughts anybody has.
We have a committee.
Fantastic.
May only be 2 people right now.
Okay.
I think we appointed 2 residents. When was that? That was right before Carvana?
Yeah, I think so. I ran into, talked to Mrs. Orion from the Historical Society. She was wanted to know what was going on with that because she was very interested in being on the committee. I think she is a short-term rental person, I believe. Sure,
We actually
So-
formed it and appointed them.
No.
How's that say?
We, oh wait, did we?
Eh,
I had to look back.
No, I don't think
I've
we.
got
We
my-
started to progress to it.
Yeah, we-
Talked about the names.
who's
I
that
think we
been
chose the
from
2
past year?
residents.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure we did the formal going to the select
No,
board.
we didn't go to
to
select
form a
board.
committee
No,
that-
No, we didn't do that.
So, and I'm not sure we've discussed the entire composition of the committee.
I don't think we got that far.
So maybe why don't you put that back on for the next meeting if we have time. Shouldn't be a long discussion.
No, there must be some record of it somewhere.
But the 2,
Actually, close to a year ago, John.
there's 2 people, Dr. Richard Zalowski, I think. Might be one of them. And can't remember the other person's name, but there was 2 residents who were interested at the time. And I think we were gonna put them on. I was not sure we have the entire scope of the committee, but it's been sitting on the back burner for a while. Other things have picked it up.
Oh, for sure. But
But it should get dealt with because, it's an issue.
That was.
Summer's coming again.
No, I mean, if we can get it dealt with and something put on for, you potentially at spring. Meeting.
Right.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So maybe we'll
Just put to
get
sleep.
that going
Put this with the sleep.
sooner rather than later. So
I'll be sure to have it on.
put it on the next agenda. and we'll try to form that.
Okay, last note before I take a look back into the moratorium notion. I did attend last week's Agricultural Commission meeting. This all stems back to a discussion I had after Dennis Clark had taken employment in Westfield, and the paperwork came in, some questions from the APR program to the town, and some people were, I guess, alarmed that they didn't have those ahead to hand it to. Having said that much, Carl Steinhardt and his office managed it without a hitch, and it all went back out. But someone from that discussion, they asked that I attend to discuss, I'm going to call it procedure. My experience with the program is fairly limited. On the private side, we did some work for a landowner, but I've never ushered through one from soup to nuts. So just that in terms of full disclosure for the board, I did attend and I did offer to them to reach out to the APR program to try to help coordinate. Their meetings unfortunately conflict with my obligations in West Springfield, but just want to let you know that was part of participation with that.
Appreciate it.
Just before we move on, the last time it looks like we discussed it was May 12th, the short-term rental.
Thank
Right,
you.
Yeah.
same meeting where we announced you being hired and joining us. Jen. So
Huh.
you did not hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then we got sideways after that. All right, so,
We did vote to establish ourselves and we did vote to appoint the 2 resident members,
but we
Dr.
had.
Zalowski and Pat Odiar.
That's right. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But we never went
I ran
before
into
the
it,
select board
that's a
because
parade.
Carvana blew up. And
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
I don't care, let them burn me.
So let's sort of think about and come to the next meeting and talk about the entirety of the committee and get that going. Even if it's, I think if they can meet and start to talk about things, again, even if it's something temporary until the master plan is completed, you at least have something that,
Start with, yeah.
okay. Let's first talk about the master plan committee initial meeting. All those emails.
Yes. I'm sorry, who is available on which date?
Yeah, wasn't there a couple of emails about? just so we're not- Is there anybody who's not available?
No, everything, which is fine.
So,
That's the only restriction. And then Jessica said that first Wednesday of the month may be challenging for her.
so. And this goes out to the folks on Zoom, we see Dory, I don't know, and Marissa, and anybody else on there, but,
Doing the public comments first.
no. 7:05, public comments. Anybody? Okay.
What did that pair with?
So, how about Thursday, November 4th, is that right? For the master plan committee initial meeting. We just have to pick a date and get it set and then let the committee figure out their schedule going forward. It may not even be on Thursdays, it may be, so whatever it is.
Did
But
you get the changes okay?
yes, yeah, so sorry. So last night went to the select board meeting. Splitting out agriculture and conservation. So it'll be Dave McWilliams and Bert Hanson as representatives from agriculture and conservation. Got myself on there ex officio, though keep in mind, Doug brought up a very good point, which is there's now, if I show up to a meeting, 3 planning board members. So we have to advertise it as a planning board meeting. So it's not a big deal, but just each of these master plan committee meetings should also be advertised as planning board meetings in case I show up and Marcus and Dave show up too. So, so I'm not planning on showing up to that many. Mine's more administrative, I think, to break ties and whatever else.
Does
and
that
then-
count too, even if like I just come and sit in the audience to do it even?
No, you coming in the audience, so you can do that. that's
But would
fine.
I trigger it though,
No.
too, even just by
No.
being present, or
No,
you because
you're not part
you're?
of the committee.
Okay.
I think that's fine. I'll check and make sure, but I think that's fine.
Or if we just go forward with it always being advertised. over.
And that's what I was gonna do anyway,
Yeah.
so, it becomes a non-issue. So agricultural conservation, me, another resident who is gonna be Marissa, and high school student, 2 non-voting high school students. So, and I'll reach out to Jennifer Willard and just see where that stands as far as getting how she wants to do it.
Do we have their rep yet?
Do
From
we
the
have-
school?
Yes,
Yeah, well,
Representative.
Alita Di Maria, I think is her name.
And
Where is she?
Where's she from?
Well, the
What is
reason-
She is.
What does she
school
do in the
she's-
school?
I don't
Part of the
know that.
School committee.
What
She's on the
committee?
school committee.
She is.
She just, no, I'm sorry, that was finance. I'm sorry. School committee was, Pat Chubb, sorry.
Anybody from school
So
administration?
finance was,
I was gonna say, that's not even a person on the committee. What do
no,
you
no,
mean?
finance was, Alita, and,
Okay,
Patrick Chubb was the,
the highly experienced.
was
Mr.
the
Chubb
highly
will be part of
experienced school
this.
committee.
Awesome.
You know,
But the Celtic people, they're not Colin or Granville or.
Pat, yes, he lives in my neighborhood, so he's a South African. So that's there was a slight little issue with economic development, which I'm working through, so we will
Ooh, this could be interesting.
figure that
The
out.
saga continues.
So that's the only thing to be finalized, but I think we're all set. So why don't we put it on for 7 PM on
7 PM. What the town planners report and comments and.
For the
no,
master
the actual
plan.
meeting, the
Oh,
actual
the actual,
Master
oh,
Plan
okay. I
Committee
thought you
on
were
for
gonna put it on
7
for the next
PM
planning
on-
board meeting. I was gonna say, you just lost your job.
7 PM on
You would like
the
that.
4th.
Yes.
Unless anybody has any other suggestions or comments about that time frame, I think, and we'll put out, there's no chair of the committee. So we will put out an agenda that basically has, 1 or 2 entries of logistics and setting a schedule and discussing of this path forward, or, whatever it is,
Forming the
just a
committee, election of officers.
election officers. We'll have the basic logistics on an agenda, but it'll be whatever the committee sort of wants to do with that, beyond the logistics. So, all right. I think that's it for the master plan. I don't think we need to talk any more about it unless anybody has any comments on it. Next is, why don't we just open up 710, 125 Sheep Pasture Road so that we can continue it. This is the one that's been hanging around and it's still in conservation. Since conservation didn't meet last night, this is gonna get continued. So we got a letter from Ryan Nelson. On behalf of the applicant, Jay Gerken, our office is herein requesting a continuation of the public hearing scheduled for tonight's meeting to allow time for the Southwest Conservation Commission to render a decision. You're hereby requesting to be placed on the board's next available agenda. Should you have any questions or comments regarding this matter, please do not hesitate to contact our office at your earliest convenience. So do I hear a motion to continue?
Until when?
My inclination is to put it on for the meeting after this. Only because that's a little bit busy and I mean, if I'm right, and they have to re-advertise it, do they have to do 2 weeks over conservation? You're a
This
sitting
is a
conservation
notice.
member, you should know this.
Oh. How dare you? How dare you? I didn't think of what filing it is. I believe that's a
Still
notice
got
of
a job?
intent, so yeah.
Okay.
Right under the bus.
So, if they have to renotice it, it's not getting done by November 9th. Right?
Why don't we put it on, we can always kick it down the road.
Good point.
Okay,
Worst things worse, if,
all right.
if it doesn't happen, then I don't want us to be the reason, if he does get approval from the other boards, I don't want us to be the reason holding it up.
159 Berkshire is what? Refresh my memory.
That's the stormwater permit.
Oh, the one where the.
Do you need a
on
motion?
the, On the order of condition, or on the,
Excuse me, Mike, they need a motion to,
yeah, hold on, I'm just trying to figure out the time, so I can put it in the motion. Why don't we put it at? It's gonna go quick. Why don't we put it at 7:25?
Mhm.
So do I hear a motion to continue this to November 9th at 7:25?
So moved.
I hear a second.
Second,
We'll do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
Richard Ottinger, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye. Okay. All right. So before we. Well, let me ask you this. Before we get to the wireless, John mentioned before the submission from Diane Gale for a temporary moratorium on major development projects in town. Sort of pending completion of the master plan process. You know, you have her submission in there. All I want to do tonight is just decide whether we want to put this on for a public hearing. I mean, it seems to make sense to me. You know, it's the same idea behind the marijuana one, right? You're sort of putting a moratorium until such time as you allow a process to get finalized. It would only apply to,
How long we had this?
I'm sorry,
And
How long have we had this?
since Friday.
How come we
Saturday,
haven't got an email on this? Got time to read it.
because I'm trying to prepare for a trial. That's really the honest reason. I just didn't, but we can, if you want to take a look at it, we can discuss it at the end of the meeting. I didn't have a chance to pass it around until I asked John to just throw it in folders and. haven't
I
had a
just have a
chance.
couple of quick questions. Would this apply to anything that's already come before us, or would it be only on things that come after?
Well, it would not be anything until.
Yeah, I have to go to
a town
meeting.
So
All right,
it would
so then we
basically
really
cover
would be
the second
talking
half
about,
of the master plan process. So it'd be a, presumably a
So if right-hand,
1 year
cli-
moratorium.
so if right-hand client had to resubmit because of other committees not meeting, it
I
shouldn't
don't
affect
think
them.
that they're,
1 year.
I'd have to look back.
That's more than a year, Mike. That's-
Yeah, no, but so,
Mike, It's written in here going to June 30th, 2024.
yeah, we can certainly talk about it. I mean, as we envision the master plan process, it's through May of 2023, or so, summer of 2023. It's a 2-year process starting from, this summer. So if this got past the town meeting, it would really be effectively for another year. What you put in the,
Just from my point of view, okay?
Yep.
You want us to get us to a point where we stop building in the town of Southwick. Besides, hold on,
Okay.
there's a lot of contractors that do an awful lot of work on an awful lot of buildings that are being built in this town. They're gonna have no work. They're gonna have to go elsewhere. The work's already short enough as it is.
Well, here's
That's not what I put in there.
here's
It
the.
says 2024, am I
No,
reading it wrong?
No, but here's what here's as I understand it, and we can talk.
But I'm not talking about a single house, but a division means multiple houses that we're working in, not just one.
So
250.
let's set aside like the depot type of condo complex where you can have, a lot of things. You're talking about the greens, both sides combined to get over 50. Neither of those sides is over 50. That thing on,
I must have missed that part.
development on Hillside is not.
That's
over
why I said I
50.
haven't had time to read it.
No, and that's perfectly fair. I think the design and why it sort of it seemed okay to me was the design is major, major development. And by the way, the Water Commission has already, put a kibosh on a lot of
It's kinda on-
development
on hold right there.
anyways. But it would be major development to at least allow the master plan process to come to completion to see, what the recommendations are from that.
Should this be residential and commercial?
Is it residential and commercial, Diane?
What's that?
Was it residential and commercial? Or was there a distinction? I guess there was developments that will be 50 units or.
There's many different
There's a bunch of
triggers, and
different
some
things.
of them here include
Some commercial,
residential, some are just
Right. Here's
applying
my-
to commercial.
Here's the only thing that I'm sort of suggesting tonight is not to decide whether to do it or not. Is whether to put it on for a public hearing to discuss it.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all I think is the
Right,
request.
I'd like to read it, chew on it, digest it before I make that decision to do that.
Okay,
Question.
And I
yeah,
haven't
so
had
let's-
anything to do. I just got this tonight.
that's fair.
Oh, keep me in time, you agree.
I got here at time, 7:00.
Diane,
I just want to say, yes, I make mistakes. I did mean 23 in my head. I was thinking the master plan thing would be 18 months to 2 years. And I figured we wouldn't really launch that until 2022. And then I said 2 years from that. So let's say that's a soft date. But to coincide with termination of the completion of the master plan.
The only thing that I see when I see things is that right now tensions in this town are hot. There are tempers flying all over Southwick, either for or against, with or opposed, liking or unliking. But to start to bring things to a complete screeching halt because somebody doesn't like 100 development apartments or whatever they're gonna call them, going in one neck of the woods. I just want to be cautious that we don't do something like that.
And I'm not suggesting.
Just
You know, if this came in without the battle that's been going on over the last couple of months, this would have a lot more weight with me. But I haven't read it yet. I'm not willing to make a decision whether or not I want to vote on it yet.
I don't think that's what,
Yeah, well, he wants to put it on for a public hearing for next meeting.
it's just.
No,
because
no, it
you're
won't be
not
next meeting,
asking for that today.
No, I mean, listen, I think the scope of it and where the floor is totally up for discussion. But I think, in all honesty, it probably helps the board in large degree because
Mhm.
you think of the position with Carvana, right? I mean, you have this development that a lot of people are against but you have the bylaws which constrain their ability to do anything about that. And so,
I think this would tie in well with the
That's
master
big
plan.
problem, Mike. There was roughly 300 people out of almost 10,000 that looked in one direction. And then, and that's how we look at things. We look at things on such a small nodule and make major decisions based on the small nodule. We need to get the whole town to come together and make decisions on things like this, and that's not happening anymore.
but
Oh, yeah,
that's what the
well,
master plan is for, right? And that's why you put this in place to allow that process to go forward. I would hate for something that would be divisive to come in that sort of meantime while the master plan process is going forward. That's the sort of where my head's at on it. So,
I have 3, just before I forget.
Yep.
If this is gonna be on the ballot come May, if it's voted on at town meeting, are we gonna have a rush of applications coming in order to beat that?
Yeah.
2, we don't exactly have a pristine record in master plan adoption and implementation. Do we want to put a moratorium based on whether or not something that may or may not get done gets done and is completed properly in a timely fashion? And then 3, I don't think I like number 5 because it would put a limit on already existing businesses in town. And if somebody has a 55,000 square foot facility and they want to add on 10,000 and they're a good business currently in town, I don't want them screwed for 2 years waiting on a development addition.
so, and again, I don't,
That's my quick judgment, reading it
Yep.
in the 15 minutes before the meeting and
so I wouldn't,
my reactions.
so there's a couple things with this that I've been thinking about with the date, right? With the marijuana one, it came up that you needed a date. You needed some sort of end date for these things. You can't put apparently you can with the water question, but apparently for most people,
And
you
you do
can't
it the right
put,
way.
you can't put a endless moratorium out there. You have to have a solid date. It's my understanding from town council. So I think you'd have to put something, you just have to factor in the expected time frame for the master master plan completion, you know, and the logistics of extending it if you need to. You can also terminate it when you need to, right? So my memory with the marijuana one is we had to extend it, I think. I thought we had to extend it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Not the marijuana.
I thought we had it for a year and then we had to extend it for another 6 months while they were still doing regulations, but maybe maybe that didn't come to fruition. I can't remember, but we can figure that out. I mean, you know, that really was designed tied to the master plan completion.
Right.
Not necessarily adoption, but at least you have a completion, you have recommendations, because you saw the last one, right? When it wasn't adopted, a lot of those recommendations still became, you know, effective bylaws or whatever, you know, else needs to be done with them. So I just think having that process completed, it allows for the ability to come together and have a community decision about where you want to go, rather than have something come in that may tear that apart. But
I think a public meeting on it would be good, at least to get some feedback to see what the flavor of town is, you know.
yeah, and you know,
Tell me we're gonna have a Carvana, so so many people show up.
all right. Was there any
Diane,
Comments?
I just, about the date, I mean, I went back and forth about putting, you know, a hard date versus a preliminary date unless another bylaw comes along or the master plan is completed. I mean, there's wording that can put the ifs in there.
Okay. All right, so what do you want to do?
You're saying next meeting is quite full.
Yeah, it's not going on for the next meeting. If we would put it on and advertise it and put it on, it would be for at the earliest,
23rd,
the 23rd.
Running to Thanksgiving, the one Thanksgiving.
shortly after the 23rd.
What?
Yeah, that's the Tuesday before
The
Thanksgiving.
Thursday too, right? Sam?
We set a meeting for a Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Last year. was that?
What, like you're doing the cooking?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'll be grinding turkeys on that Wednesday. I'll tell you that.
Right.
So,
I'm coming to your house. I'm
yeah.
not cooking this year.
Where's that?
I want fried turkey.
All right, well, I guess let's do this. Why don't we turn to the wireless district? If you want to take a look through that while we're doing some other things.
I'm gonna go sit in my truck and read it. I got a peace and quiet
Go have a cigarette. and read
or
it.
two. You come down
All
and
right.
explain.
So let's table that for a minute and move on to the wireless communications service district bylaw revision public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provision of Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, that the planning board will hold a hybrid public hearing on Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 at 7:20 p.m. via Zoom and in the land use hearing room, Town Hall, 4 College Highway, to consider amending the code of the town of Southwick, Section 185.5, districts enumerated, semicolon maps, and Section 185-23.1. Wireless communications service district, including but not limited to amending the district map reference and section 185-23.1 C1. Zoom information is given. Details regarding the proposed amendments may be reviewed by contacting the town planner, John Goddard, at his phone or email. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on this proposed bylaw change should appear at the time and place designated. Michael Doherty, Chairperson, Southwick Planning Board. Okay, thank you. Before I take it. And I think you have Marcus's comment since you can't be here. So let's start with some discussion of topics and scope, right? I mean, I think my take of it was that a lot of the board members thought that the map should be amended. And other properties considered, properties taken out. Um, I think there were potential bylaw changes that came about, both through discussion from the board as well as, discussion from the applicant and others. In my mind, I have whether you specify about balloon tests in there. I think we have, some of those types of things that we may require. We have that separate independent consultant bylaw now, so with that would obviously apply to this, and you can use that, so you don't need to wrap that in.
Wasn't there a lot of interest given after the last thing we had? That people had properties that they wanted to throw in?
Right.
We still
So-
have that list?
It, yes, yes, I think we can pull that together. The other part of it, right, is whether you put into the bylaw some process where people could have their property put into it, right, by
Well, there's still to be certain parameters. I mean,
certain parameters, and also get, voted on whether it's through the planning board or
Right, like we don't want
town
to,
meeting.
I would hate to go through the whole process and look at the map and then be like, and think that we drew the line right, and then 10 years down the road, somebody comes forward and says, hey, you guys forgot my parcel, and
Mhm.
this, I actually fit and meet all the other setback requirements, now what? So,
Right. Right, I mean, that's, at least that was my understanding of what happened over off Patriots there is, I mean, that wasn't developed at the time. At least licensed it wasn't, and I'm not sure beyond, I think Corey's house, right, beyond where that cul-de-sac was, used to be. I'm not sure that
There
was
was this
developed.
cul-de-sac, there was nothing
Yeah.
back there.
So, I mean, there wasn't much developed there. Patriots probably was, or just then.
Yeah, Patriot Way's been this since the early, mid-90s, right?
Right.
Does this have any effect on our current lawsuit going on? We're just gonna fit that at all, or?
This was done 98 was the last one?
It is what it is. I mean, we don't have any relevant discussions. It allows them to consider
Reconsider.
a new bylaw, if there's a new bylaw and a new map, and decide whether they want
Yeah.
to settle it. I mean, I suppose it gives them other options. But other than that, it is what it is. Then nothing's happened on it. And that's why I emailed you guys, because actually I need to email you because it must have been Verizon actually filed a motion the other day to prompt the court to actually hear
Who's the
the
log?
motion to intervene. So,
Cattle prods, let's get moving here.
which was probably a nicely worded one. I don't think I read it yet, but
Could we-
so,
Could we have somebody, get like a map of town and see what plots we're looking at, and then, so, well, it's just one big map, and you can just look at them, say, okay, yes, this one, or that one, instead of doing block by block by block.
well, I mean, so what I would suggest is maybe it's worth generating a list. And John can tell me if I'm full of it and this could be done, but generating a list of properties that would meet a certain specification such that you could put something on there, right? You need a fall zone, so they have to be of a certain size. And I don't know whether we reconsider the size of the fall zone, but there has to be some fall zone.
Yeah.
And so that eliminates a bunch of properties, right? So you only need to look at X amount of properties, depending on what the size of the fall zone is.
Yeah, what's on
don't we have
three and a
don't
half
we
times the
have an
height?
extensive list of the ones that Verizon thoroughly considered and found to not be appropriate for a number of reasons? And
But that's only.
a lot
in
of them
that-
weren't in the district, though, I
Yeah, but they. can
Right,
do
but that's
that.
only in that one area, right? I mean, I think we need to look at this townwide.
Well, that's a start,
They
I'm
can
saying,
deal
as
with
a
that.
Yeah, I
start.
think those have to,
After.
at least have
They gotta get
town
restrictions.
properties that are,
They had a little bit of.
Probably
truth in
the
there.
town owned, but they can-
Decision will base
that's
because
where
we
it's
already spent
necessary,
such a lot of
but
money.
it's
We're not
town-
gonna
Oh, I know.
it's a town property.
And I mean, I think you have to,
Those properties would still be. good.
I mean, you have to look at the entire town. I mean, I think frankly, there's, I forget what we were talking about the other day, but down in the center of town, there's problems.
There can be connectivity problems down there. The biggest places I lose it is at the South Long Yard Vining Hill intersection. And then heading out of town and into Westfield.
You
don't
put it
lose
in
it.
board lining, right in my backyard, so I could.
That's right,
And
right
call
behind,
somebody.
right behind the big American flag.
I
You
was
won't
gonna
even be
say,
able
no
to
one
see
will
it.
see
How about Gravel Road?
Yeah, Let's get a bigger flag.
There's already
Verizon
one
doesn't like
up
me
on the
because of our
mountain.
last
It's
decision, so I don't get
it looks
cell
like a
service.
tree. You can't see it from my property. It's fine.
So I don't, John, is that something, are we able to generate a list like that based on some?
Don't they
I
have a
don't know if it's
certain
acreage or?
Yeah,
elevation requirement also?
let me, so I can start working through the assessors department, because I'm sure everything we look at is somewhere in tabular format. That's gotta be my first stop right there.
Isn't there what's the word I just used?
Elevation.
Thank you, elevation requirement? Wow.
No, I mean, that was their
That's up to them,
own,
that's up to them.
that was their sort of criteria.
If you want to
to-
build a 200-foot tower in a
Yeah.
basin, go for it. Knock yourself out.
So, I mean, I imagine, right, I mean, if you have to have a fall zone, it has to be a property of a certain length and width, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
gotta be a minimum length and width to get fall zone.
Oh, yeah, well, you get 3.5 times the height. What's the average height? 150 feet?
Well,
I think that's what he was
But-
saying.
Depends on-
I want to
depends
be
on
careful
topography,
though
right?
on
But-
saying, like, if we have a situation where there's an area that is having trouble and they say, well, we could fix it with a 75-foot pole here, but you guys didn't include that parcel because you didn't anticipate a 75-foot tower. You thought they were all going to be 150 feet. So
That's,
how restrictive do we want to be and what tower size are we gonna,
Elevation has a
Base
lot to
that.
do with that tower height.
you know, and with considering the 5G aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, those towers aren't tall. They're
Well,
meant
and
to be
that's-
smaller.
right, and that's another discussion to be had. I mean, that's another part of it that I was gonna bring up is the 5G aspect of it. We're gonna talk about that.
This might be that point where that consultant comes in and starts telling us what the hell these things actually do. It came back quick.
All right, any other
You get that guy from New York.
the attorney?
Unless you want,
that guy
you got
was good.
500
Um, Any,
Not licensed in Mass.
It's okay.
Um,
It's only talking.
any other topics or portions of the bylaw or procedural things that you guys,
Definitely that balloon test has gotta be.
Oh,
redone.
yeah.
right? I mean, I think the argument that we can't ask them to do it is silly, but I think having it in there is sense, that it's not an argument.
Yeah, part of the bylaw, but make it so it's a little bit
request for
more,
renderings and all that.
yeah,
stuff
better
should be in
rendering of
there.
what it looks like. Never mind a 4-foot ball for a cell tower you're putting up to 16 feet high. You know, that wasn't a good representation, I didn't think.
Okay.
And then the whole thing about coming back and jacking the pole up afterwards, we need to take care of that too.
Well,
Once
that
it's
was
done, it's
FEMA.
done.
No. The other thing, maybe you could,
Uh-huh, that's what we got now.
or
Yeah, the
if
government-
I had been raised, as well, is I started to
Kind
pull
of
a
raising
couple,
the pole and the jacking the
but maybe
pole.
looking around here
There's a
for
problem.
bylaws.
The
and
problem
everything
is,
else,
It's very
And
sexual.
just give us some
Problem with that, what you said,
topics to
the
look at.
federal government will override it. There's sure such an everybody.
All right, anybody, anything else? Before I open it up for,
That's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing is, at like Marcus's, at least his
Oh,
initial
I
comment
want
about the
Marcus, I'm
technical
sorry, yeah.
assessment by somebody who really knows cell towers and what,
Yeah, the consultant.
you know.
that seems to make sense.
That's what I'm saying. He has the time to get the consultant. to figure out what these things do.
We only got $20 on that.
Yeah, and I,
$20.
I did like, the idea of Marcus's last thing here, which is what we've been doing with stormwater and other things, which is moving it to, certain things that are technical to a rules and regulations type thing, so that there's more ability on the fly to adjust stuff, and you're not waiting, potentially a year to go to town meeting and adjust something. You have a little bit more ability as a board to adjust something technical
Hmm.
as they change. So I think that's something to be considered too.
That being said, when we do our budget next year, we should put a couple more dollars in for, advisory people. Technical people.
Well, but remember, we could do that for for trying to do this.
Yeah.
But also remember that, for applications that come in front of us, we can use the bylaw that they have to pay for.
Right.
So,
That works.
all right, anything else? All right, any public comments on this? Live first? No. Anybody on Zoom have any comments on this? Okay. All right, so I think sort of as an action list, let's try to get some other bylaws
Mhm.
and just circulate them around to the board. And I'm just trying to think, even if you did like a 50-foot tower, right, 3.5 times.
Is it 300 times? That was it?
That's almost getting 200 by 200, right? I mean, that's still,
An acre,
that's
that's an
still
acre.
cutting down,
That's an acre.
it's still cutting down a good amount of properties in town, I bet, or some, you know, maybe cutting it. in
Is it
half.
300 times?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just, I mean, if it's not gonna be workable, then it's, why bother? doing it, right?
Well,
Um,
so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the overlay district in and of itself, just for that reason, is that, you know, the people who drew it 20 years ago drew it lines that don't necessarily apply to today, and,
I got a map like that in town.
yeah, well,
But you have to think of the flip side, right? Because you're now putting in the discretion of any planning board, the ability to consider putting a cell tower anywhere. Not sure that's what you want to do, in my mind. But it's got to be minimal, I think, requirements to at least. Because then you have to consider it, right?
It's not like
If
they're
someone
putting up
came
their
in for an
own
app-
cell tower. I mean, if you're looking at it bit by bit, you gotta have somebody willing to put it up first. They're not gonna just gonna stick it in somebody's backyard because they want it. Gotta
No,
meet their criteria, so
Have
that,
you met my brother on corner Hastings and Hillside?
say that again?
Have you met my brother on corner Hastings and Hillside with his radio towers?
Oh, the hand radio tower.
But I mean, there's gonna be practical limitations, right? Of you need to have a contract with the owner and you need to
Oh,
have
yeah,
some degree of property, I
you
suppose.
can't just put your own tower up.
But, you know, with the topography of Southwick, for the most part, these are gonna be pretty tall, I think. I don't think there's gonna be many places where you're gonna get away with a shorter tower. There may be some, right? I mean, we talked about, I remember looking at that property that was supposed to be the termination of 57, right? That is owned by the Commonwealth,
Yeah,
up on Foster, or not Foster, off, on 57. And right next to like the
Chipotle
Bowman's
Mountain.
Club and
Chipotle Mountain. I
coming
think.
down. So I think, right, that was supposed to be the termination of 57.
Mhm.
So that property there, right? Not bad, that's 300 something feet,
Yeah.
not a bad, you wouldn't need a tower that's 120 feet up there necessarily. But I don't know, I mean,
My brother mentioned he would be able to buy these in the Hirsch by the time everyone gets done.
um,
But I think we also have a responsibility to the town people who need this sort of technology, that they need this. You know, we have some responsibility there also.
no, but we can have the debate about what, if any, requirements to have on there. I'm just trying to think of whether there's some data to be generated that would be of use to us by, you know, using some criteria. And if maybe we should have the debate before we generate any criteria, maybe that's the way to go. I just didn't know if there was going to be anything of use to generate from GIS or assessor's office that may be useful, like, you know, when we were dealing with the solar in residential, right? I mean, you're dealing with, what we talked, 90, 100 properties, something like that, at the end of the day, once we generated the
it
the list.
Something acres.
it was, yeah, when you got down to just 15 plus or
Mm.
something like that, or 20
think
plus, it wasn't.
And then you're dealing, you know, when you take out the ones with wetlands and you do, I mean, it puts stuff in context of what you're actually dealing with, and it's not as, you know, huge as you may think it is.
So why don't we get a list person, you know, start with that, at least see where these properties are.
But then
Thing is,
I
though,
think
And at that point, we can decide,
kind of
okay,
gonna
really
end up
need the technical piece to it as well.
Yeah.
Earlier rather than later, if we're gonna be, if we hire some sort of cellular independent guy, he comes in and he says, Yeah, it's great. This town could definitely use maybe one or two more tall towers, but guess what? In the next 15 years, you're gonna have 1 million applications in front of you for 5G services, and that means you need spots here, and you need a spot here, and you need a spot here. And I just think that sort of information might be helpful ahead of time, before we start digging into the weeds of, well, we're gonna cut this section of town out because there's no large parcels along 10202 right now that could hold a tall tower. But if in 10 years we are implementing 5G services, that's the corridor that they're gonna get placed first, is 10202. You see, like, that's
Yeah,
kind of where
and
my hiccup is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth getting the information from them. I mean, my head, my understanding was the 5G is gonna be part building or telephone pole based. And they're just gonna be tossing them up there, and I'm not sure how much.
Right, but
we have that.
Well,
So,
if we have a prohibition and this particular, if it's not part of the district and they want to put a cell tower there, it's a, because we don't identify a 5G pod as something other than,
no, that's fair.
you
And I
know,
don't know how that plays out, especially with the federal law, right? I don't know.
any wireless communication node has to be within our communication district or. So,
No, I mean, those are all good things to think about, and so,
I need a place to put my flying cars. Right, Dave?
I guess the other thing to think about is getting some money for, figure out,
Talk to somebody.
so I'll talk to Carl about it. And finding someone,
Mhm.
what was that guy's name?
Talking about flying cars.
Right. That's that guy, it was,
Oh, Mike?
the technical guy.
My brother-in-law is a.
Oh, no,
no.
his real name was Ron. It was Jay Rivera.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have a flying
Man,
car
those
by around
Verizon
town?
people really traumatized me. I remember their names a year later.
Yeah, so maybe we can look at getting someone in there, and we'll wait on getting the data as far as properties. I mean, unless, I don't know if you can generate a sort of, how many are an acre or less, how many are between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, if you can get something like that pretty easily.
Yeah.
Maybe just have that, so we have a,
I can do something.
I'm not sure anything over, cutting it at an acre or even 2 is gonna be a meaningful. That's, a lot of data.
I'm just kind of curious.
John.
Map here.
Right.
Remind me, my brother-in-law's a hamburger operator.
I got you highlighted right there.
Okay, anything else on this before we kick it on down the road?
Okay.
All right, so we have time to do this. This is, obviously needs to make it to town meeting if there's any changes, so. It's on for the next meeting, or we will continue it for the next meeting at.
It is on.
Oh, okay.
Nothing
At a
but-
blank. We'll continue it on to 8 o'clock on November 9th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
I'll do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
Richard Ottinger, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye. Okay. Oh, yeah, no. Okay. Well, you know what?
Just the
Designated.
board and I.
You've been designated.
Anybody with something to add to the cellulose?
All right. 725 Noble Steed Crossing, request to release building lots from covenant in lieu of bonds.
Okay, I think everybody has a handout in their folder with a copy of the request.
You know all about this. Right?
All right.
So we'll look at that. There's the,
Mike,
Just that's right.
that's right. The request, Mr. Brown's response. And I can't get access to the server.
Oh. Do I have it or not? No. All right. Yeah. All right, so we have, and it should be in your folder, right, a request from Salt Marsh to release lot 16 from the covenant in the bond. They indicate that they have completed the following infrastructure work within the Noblesdeep subdivision. Binder / electrical / drainage to lot 14. Essentially, the remaining work consists of sidewalk / top coat / crossing / drain top / curbing. And the cost associated with this completion is substantially less than the value of the lots remaining subject to the covenant. The appropriate partial release form is closed. So we have a partial release that releases.
Development.
All right, so this is wrong.
Don't think that word. Well, my
I
concern
don't
is
know
that the
a lot
lot
of
is
them.
not-
It says 14 here, it's 16 here.
Did you ever do look there?
Oh, no, this says 16 up
There's
there.
a lot of the solar panels in the backyard.
It should be-
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's
Sounds
the
like a
that's the word that
plot
should be.
plan.
I'm sorry.
They got three of them,
Yep,
11,
yep.
15.
Okay, thank you.
It should be-
No, it's 11 through.
11-2.
So it's 11.
John, give me a plot
215
plan.
and 17.
Right, just
So
so
this
we
should
can
be
see.
that. lot
Yep, all right, so
16
while you're doing
only.
that, let me read in Randy's comments.
So we end up with another branch.
The Department of Public Works reviewed the 10/15/2021 letter from Salt Marsh Brothers requesting to modify the covenant into a bond for Noblesdeep Estates. For this review, DPW conducted a site visit and evaluated the total value of work compared to the value of work remaining. The below table summarizes this analysis. Total value of all work, 1.3 million. Total value of work completed to date, 756,000. Total value of work remaining, 544,000. The developer provided sufficient backup information to show that the value of land in lots 11 through 15 and 17 is $570,000, which is greater than the value of work remaining. As such, DPW concurs that the developer has completed a sufficient amount of work to allow lot 16 to be released from the covenant. However, it should be noted that DPW has not completed a thorough inspection of the quality of work completed to date.
Yeah.
As a result, any
Yeah, but the lot
considerations
value
given
is
towards completed work for this calculation should not be
Regardless what the error is.
misconstrued as a recommendation for town acceptance. Any
Some of the
considerations
lots are
given
against the
is
solar
simply
panels.
an acknowledgement that this work
Yeah.
appears to have been completed. The road acceptance process will commence at a later date. Be happy to discuss this further with the board. If you have any questions, let me know. Randy Brown, DPW Director.
So the lots are again?
Lot 16.
16 is what I let go.
Okay.
We got this
So-
one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and we're 17.
Over here.
So 6 lots. Less than 100,000 a lot. I'm guessing it's probably getting more.
Here's 16, 17 over here. Here's the other.
So it's this.
Yeah, this way, it's wherever this word solar farm is.
There's these lots, and you can see the solar farm. So I put the-
Right, so it's basically what's valuable.
The last paragraph is a very issue.
And you can see this, you can see the solar farm from here. too.
Yeah,
So 11,
and the difference in language of the
can you see the flow? of all those?
570 to 544.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah, right here. Here- Here's a solar farm right here.
26,000.
Yeah, he only has.
And
Well, maybe
Mr.
that's why Randy
Saltmarsh's
was
assertion that it was
cut it down, right? I mean, he's valuing them at
substantially less
90
than the value of the
something
lots.
K.
to
Low for
Finish it. I don't know.
low.
In a development
sub-
lot these days.
Correct.
You have all the amenities.
I think they should wait till they figure out the
That's not
quality of the work is
Yeah,
before they
so-
get too crazy.
Because could the quality
where
of
we end
work
up-
be
that's how we end up with-
$26,000?
That's how we end up with Robin Road.
So
The quality of the work was
17 or
inspected.
17.
They just looked at our car and figured it was a
Yeah.
road. I think they built it on styrofoam. That last paragraph is a little. disheartening. They haven't evaluated the quality of the work.
16 is when you
Road.
The developer.
Um,
You here for Robin Road?
No, I disclaim all knowledge. There is an issue up in the ranch right now, which is probably why he's writing that to somebody.
The,
The developer was up here.
So,
There's another one.
For paving, driveway, paving road.
I mean, in my mind, the question right becomes, you have some value. I don't think 570 is a bad number, but even if you call it 500 in land that it remains there. You have a development that he values as 1.3 million as total work. You know, so, you know, what's been completed, you can imagine, even if some of it had to have corrections made to it, it's not all corrections, right? So some portion of it is.
Again, I refer to rule number 1 and rule number 2.
Yeah, right. So you know, I don't, at this point, taking 1 out of 7 remaining doesn't seem like a huge jump to me, given these numbers, but
Which one is the most?
certainly here
16?
discussion.
Number 16.
Sixteen in state law, right?
Yes, well, it looks like it.
As it comes in up here,
That's the one.
Flag.
like over and all
Any discussion from the board?
Give him 17.
I mean, it's a close number. According to Randy, the developer provided enough
That's okay.
detail for $570,000 of value, although discussion of the placement of these particular lots makes that value questionable. And the difference between the claimed value of the land and the total value of the work remaining is $26,000 only.
that.
So if there are more than 1 or 2 minor issues that haven't been identified, we only have a $26,000 cushion. If we were to accept that the said lots are indeed worth $570,000, which at this point in time, a decade into the development of this development and the place that it's located makes it questionable.
Yeah, though,
Where's the camera
to be
again?
fair, it hasn't been, Jesse's only had it for,
Yes, I've
you
seen
know,
those.
much more,
Here's
a
the-
shorter period of time than that. I
Yeah.
can't remember when Jesse took over.
Here's
but
the
it
shoulder
was-
Which, and not to say that it's all on
Right.
that
But it-
company, but then we've also got other developments going into town where these lots are getting to be less and less desirable. And the idea of staring into the solar farm in your backyard is getting less and less desirable when there are other lots available throughout town.
So sidewalks, top coat, crossing, drain tops. and curb.
Where Randy put a price tag on that to finish the work.
Let's see that.
Wait, the right phone again?
And then Jesse's letter states that the cost associated with this completion is substantially less than the value of the lots remaining. I don't know, $26,000 does not seem substantially less to me.
Let me see when I go up there. 17 must be one back here. I mean, 16.
So he has sold
Randy's not up there, is he?
1 through 10 and 17 through 25.
Is Randy going on by any chance?
No, it's not.
Problem is, see, here's a problem with the have with the ranch. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I mean, the only thing in my head, right, that I'm thinking of is that. Well, it's got the first coat down, right, for the whole. I haven't been up there in a while.
When was that put down?
No, I understand, but there is a coat down, right? There is.
There is
paved.
I don't think so.
sort
I
of-
don't think it's the whole road.
Uh,
No, it's not the whole road.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. is-
No.
Because
It only goes up to,
to where it's sold,
Number 14, I think. Right about there.
it goes up to here.
Yeah.
Wait for school.
Some portion. Might be.
Hmm.
Okay, I didn't pay that close attention. Was on the road yet. I Can't
All right.
imagine stuff I
You know, are we slow learners here? We have Robin Road, we have the ranch, I mean,
No, I mean, it is close. I guess in my head, I was thinking that, you know, worst case scenario, if you walk away from it, doesn't have to be a cul-de-sac. I mean, it doesn't have to be a cul-de-sac. It could be a dead end. Right? You could dead end. You don't have to do a circle. And you cut down the amount of work that needs to be done.
it must have been 2 years and the lots haven't sold yet, I mean, you know, in this building climate.
Is that something, I mean, I don't know how far down the line of the process can you make that decision to change that?
We've
Well,
I mean,
if they
like,
walk
if the
away and
town
then the
can
town
just-
has to step in and, you know,
been there, done that. Can we kick this down the road for a month and have us all drive up there and take a look at it? Is that a possibility?
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't mind taking more time to look at it, and talking to Randy about it. And I'm not sure. We could, well, we could probably put it on for next month at least, as a you know, diary.
Yeah.
See if we can deal with it. and try to get it next meeting.
I think we all be more pleased with it.
We won't, but, that's fair. So why don't we put this on for, I guess we do the record, but we'll do a motion to continue this on to,
Oh, yeah, one time, huh?
Can you print this full copies of that print right there?
Yeah, no problem.
So we'll go take a look at it. Okay?
be great.
Take it right. See every 5
Well, I mean, no one needs to show up for this, and all like, we can get comments in beforehand, so unless Chelsea wants to show up, but, so why don't we put it in at 8:15?
On the ninth?
Do I hear a motion to table this discussion for today and pick it back up at 8:15 on November 9th?
So moved.
Second,
Do a roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Richard Ottinger, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Tasting eye.
Just do a bill about the house. Yeah, 15,000 bill.
7:30. A&Rs. One 115 Fred Jackson Road. And lot 7 and 8 North Triangle Road.
We're at 7 and 8 on Wood Vining Road. We're at lots.
For those
It's
ones
your
that
house.
were already
Yeah.
being built.
You're not
Figure
in our-
that out.
Dave, it's your house.
Are those the ones that are already being built?
I don't, you live there, I don't know that area at all.
I don't know where they are either. We got a map? Somebody got a, map? Everybody got a compass?
I'll
We're
get it
not
for you.
there yet.
We've got plans, don't you worry. Yeah,
You go for it.
sure thing. 115 Fred Jackson should look awful familiar. Everyone, got confirmation that the special permit, common driveway and estate lot were both installed by the city that was recorded today to enable us to move forward with this plan. Again, showing several conventional Form A lots, as well as the state lot. And that common driveway. That's about all I have to say.
You go,
So-
go,
Yeah,
go,
so
go.
you are officially, yes.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
You're not here.
Any questions on 115 Fred Jackson? Yeah, what is it? We have Fred Jackson, so it's a public way. We have,
Uh, Adequate frontage
Yep.
and access.
No
It's all
changes
parcels.
from when we approved it.
No
Yep,
changes when
same
we
as when it
improved.
was.
We got the minimum 50 feet on the estate lot.
Mhm.
We'll call out up above that access point on the plan you'll see, so everything seems to be in order for them to move on to that next step.
Okay.
That was a lot of work.
Do I hear a motion?
Second. Do a roll call vote. Michael Doherty, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Aye.
I should probably be clear. The motion is to,
Marcus, Marcus is the one who always
I was
gets
gonna
us.
Endorse?
endorse the
Endorse.
Sylvan
Endorse.
Required, yes. The A and R.
We're gonna sign 45 as well.
Every
Yeah, that's why we're here, huh?
Okay. Mr. Chair, shall I continue?
Yes.
Okay, over Moore Vine Road, got a couple more frontage lots cut out from the acreage that is south of Nicholson Hill Road, the intersection of Nicholson Hill and Moore Vine. On the east side, these two lots are in drier portions of the property. No problems with access, 200 feet of frontage, minimum 60,000 square feet.
This is only on. It's on
Should
40.
be on there.
Yes. And so that's the existing residence right there. They've got construction going on, frankly, in lots on both sides, if you've been down there lately.
Two of them over here,
What's the zoning here?
10 and 11. Those are,
R4.
10 and 11 have already been before us?
Doesn't our 40
My
require,
presumption is yes, perhaps that's before my time, but
doesn't our 40 require 2 acres?
You better check on that.
I will double check.
And I'd like to see Randy Brown take a look where that driveway's at.
Okay,
Seriously.
one of those 10 or 11 of
Yeah,
curiosity,
it's right on the curve. And
Okay.
to blind both directions.
I can certainly bring that to his attention.
What's the
Especially if we
minimum,
haven't approved those lots yet.
What's the overall,
That
what's the, hold on.
Well, They're calling for 7, but I don't see where's 8.
Excuse me, 7 and 9
Oh,
are the ones, I believe, an early bit of correspondence.
nine's almost done.
7, 8 on the agenda, but there is no lot 8 on that plan.
I
I'd be
think
just
you're awfully
back there.
correct,
Right.
Mr. Sutton.
That's the presumption.
I think
What's
you're
the acres?
correct.
Our plan, that was 2 acres.
They're
6,000.
building without. Lot.
You're gonna have,
What's coming first? Doesn't matter.
this is only 1.3 acres here.
So, I don't know.
You know, 9's almost done.
Houses were-
Or no, it's at 40.
It's on 40.
It's 40.
We're at 40.
It's 40, isn't it? 40,000?
I thought it was 2 acres.
I don't think so.
I
I could be wrong though.
R40 for single family home,
It was 20.
200 feet of frontage, 60,000 square feet.
60.
60,000, good. Just made it 60,280. That's good, man. Good, man. I don't know. I assume he was right, this.
All right.
Yeah, they could buy one of these lots, you know, put a cell tower up there. You have, yeah, you get cell service at house.
Let's see if I can pull these up here. You said it's right by Nicholson Hill.
Just
right
south.
off- Just south of it.
Yes, it's not, yeah.
All right.
Here's our pronounced house right here.
Oh, since I don't know. Yeah, okay.
It's the owl's tail.
We're not far from it.
So. That's 7 right here.
I'm sorry, I'm right here. Yes.
So. It's kind I mean. Still one property on it, yeah.
That doesn't get
I
updated
think
very
it-
frequently, so I'm gonna try and find.
That's what I'm looking to see if I can go to the assessors, right? If they should have.
I'm looking
So,
at the registry for the recorded plan for those other lots shown in dashed lines. So, excuse me, 5, 6, 10, and 11.
Picture, I got 3 balls.
I didn't see one owned by Oak Ridge Custom. Home.
If you're looking through the assessors database, my understanding that's just not updated as.
They're usually like 6 months behind.
Well, I mean, it should be in the last.
You can't see
years,
it, when this hill goes down.
Yeah.
and then it goes down that way. You can't see it away.
It's 7.
Oh, it's right up in my freaking records.
It's like,
2 weeks ago. Angela was gone.
May XTON. 23,669.
well, let's,
I'm trying to find Mike.
I'm just trying to see what's been,
Approved or not approved?
all right. So, I mean, but regardless,
Apparently they're getting building permits because their foundation, the construction's been done, the roof's on.
John, is this probably going up this lot?
To be honest, I can't, I couldn't tell you. I'd have to take a look at what's been submitted to the building
There.
department, if anything's been
There's a
conservation.
house here.
Right. But where's this probably coming off?
It used
No,
to
no, they
come
changed it. That's
out
coming out right
on
here.
lot
Okay, I don't get it.
6, and
Used
they
to loop
cut it
around.
off, so it
And now
comes
it's
out the
coming
front
out.
now.
Yeah.
all right. So, I mean, they comply with the requirements for. Any questions from the board? No.
Why is that? What do you require? I have both.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have no doubt. All right, so do I hear a motion to endorse this plan? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Rich Singer, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
James Pina, aye. All right. So that is all set. Yeah, all right, so now I'm seeing, okay. We got minutes.
July.
Just got a minute, good, just.
Yeah.
I followed someone's
Yeah.
I
desk.
did not have a chance to review
Yeah,
these.
I only have-
That's a David, that's a David.
John has got so many hats on right now.
We'll give you this.
So, I think I mean, if you wish to do some minutes, you feel free to.
You want me
Volunteer
to
labor is
minutes? Are you
always-
That
seriously?
wouldn't be very good.
All
My
right.
paragraphs equal 1 sentence.
So I'm hoping that, with Meg starting back up again, we'll get some minutes out the door and get back caught up the way we usually are. So, did you get a chance to look at? Okay, all right. So,
Till next meeting.
till next week.
Okay.
So much for
Dave's
July.
Dave's
I
turn.
can't
Why
wait to
is why is
rewatch
there
it.
one skipped? Why is
Sorry?
there not the August?
So the inclination to make sure was prioritized and set the plan for September 21st.
What was on there?
Was coming out of the Greens West
Yep.
discussion. So
All right.
we'll have that ready.
Fair
We can take a beginning of next meeting.
So I would, to the extent that Meg can take these on. First pass. So we're caught up on these.
She's geared up for it and understands that's the burden I've.
And she knows them well. Okay, any moratorium? No, I forgot.
I didn't forget.
Did you look at it?
No, I haven't had a chance. You had me doing other things. You're a brutal boss.
I try. What is your thought?
I'll give you this one, but you owe me. I want fried turkey.
This is for the tenth. I'm not frying it, I'm brining it, brining.
When you brine it before you do anything, you always brine your turkey. Whether you're roasting it, I usually mention frying. You had a reaction from the crowd. Go back to the
Telling, not
minutes.
asking.
Rewind this hour.
We're gonna have,
Are you guys getting more important tonight?
we're gonna go home. It's gonna be a, YouTube video of that turkey fryer flying on Lexington Circle, but, no, we're not doing that. All right, I mean, I think
Put it on.
we'll put it on for.
You're gonna make that change, right?
No, we are developing it as we speak. Having said that much, we're going to discuss a bylaw revision, I think. I guess we would place it on the agenda with the understanding that we would put that request into the select board first and have them report back to us.
Do we want to have a further discussion of whether we want to pursue it first before we really approach the select board with it?
No, we have to get the, refresh me on the process, we have to get their say so before we open up the hearing, I think, right?
That's right.
And then get their, and then they sort of rubber stamp the, theoretically rubber stamp, a recommendation to put it on the warrant. Yeah, so they have it at both the front and the back. They meet on Monday. So they meet on Monday.
Yes,
Yes.
that seems right.
And then you could advertise it. They meet on Monday. Get that back. Just run, I don't want to put something on that's gonna be not.
So here's one scenario, the tightest and most aggressive. If they were to take up this discussion, put the request in tomorrow, take up the discussion on Monday, the 25th, I would have to have my publication in. Oh, actually, that would work just fine. I figure we have an extra week before our next meeting on the 9th. So I can place it. I can put in our request and not jam ourselves up with the legal ad. There's a hold up from, or
Yeah, we're
some
not,
change with the
we
select
wouldn't
board.
be putting it on the 23rd, right? So.
Or-
No,
or the
no,
9th.
not for that.
You don't wanna get-
No. We have too much on the 9th. There's no way we're doing it.
Excellent.
I'm thinking the 23rd.
Oh, in which case, yes, there's an abundance of time.
I just want to make sure that
Thank you.
I'm not missing something. Okay, anything else that we need to talk about? I am gonna get you that syrup though.
I went Sunday and I didn't catch a damn thing. I want to know why.
But you had a beautiful day for it though.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, sitting out there on that boat.
Then the barking dog showed up and I left. They weren't willing to let me use it for bait.
All right, Mr. Sutton,
I make a motion to close the meeting.
do I hear a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,